Romance and Saga 2 is a complicated JRPG. Due to how unforgiving it can be, I believe many new players can have even more fun playing this game when going in with a basic understanding of its various systems. But if you want a truly blind experience, you may find it more rewarding, albeit time consuming, to jump in and figure out these systems for yourself. Knowledge truly is power in the SaGa series. This series of videos is based on the remaster for PC, consoles, and mobile, since that's the only official way to play in English. It includes updated visuals and music, some extra content, and a few new quality of life features, although nearly all the concepts discussed in this video also apply to the original Super Famicom release. No stats, characters, or core mechanics were changed for the remaster. With that out of the way, let's discuss magic and spells in Romance and Saga 2. I'll start with overviews of the game's systems, then talk about each school of magic in detail. If you're just starting the game, you might be wondering how to use magic in the first place. Most of the early game characters do not come with any magic, but your Emperor does, and there are court mages you can recruit in Castle Avalon who start with a few basic spells. Eventually, you'll be able to construct a magic research facility in your hometown of Avalon where you can learn new spells and types of magic, which I'll discuss a little later. You'll also unlock better mage classes and other spellcasters as you progress through the game. I'll talk more about this soon. There are 6 types or schools of magic in the game: Divine or Light Magic, Fire Magic, Water Magic, Wind Magic, Earth Magic, and Dark Magic. Any character, not just mages, can eventually learn up to 3 schools of magic, but they can't learn 2 opposing schools at once. Light opposes dark, fire opposes water, and wind opposes earth. Since each school of magic has its own set of spells, choosing which schools to teach which characters is important, especially by the endgame. You might want to choose to focus on just a few types of magic, or go all out and use everything. It's up to your playstyle. In fact, you can finish the whole game without ever using magic at all, but this is awfully difficult. Magic is somewhat overpowered in Romance and Saga 2 once you understand it. Spells use a fairly standard MP or magic points system in the game. Each spell has a set cost, and that cost never changes. Characters gain more maximum MP as their magic levels increase. The more schools of magic a character knows, and the higher their levels in those schools, the more total MP they'll have. Also, MP is not refilled after a battle. You must use an item or sleep in a bed for that. Finally, your character's levels in the type of magic they know go up by using spells in combat. If you've got a character casting water magic spells every turn of every battle, they're going to end up with a high water magic level fairly quickly. On the other hand, if a character knows water magic but never casts any water magic spells, their water magic level will never increase. Also, when you recruit a character or they learn a new school of magic, the magic level they start at depends on their personal stats as well as your global magic level. I go into great detail on how magic levels work in my stats and leveling video, so check that one out if you're interested in learning more. The game's mage characters, such as the aforementioned court mages, typically come with 2 predetermined schools of magic, and all characters in the game have unique stats. For example, the court mage named Emerald always comes with fire and wind magic. She always has the same stats, and her stats are a bit different from other court mages. Spell damage is based off the magic stat, well, except for dark magic spells. Those use the hidden logic stat, which you can check at the magic research facility after building it. I mentioned this place before, and I'll talk more about it soon, I promise. Anyway, this means that mages with inherently higher magic, or logic for dark magic, are better than other mages for casting spells. If you want to figure out which characters are best, there are reference sheets available online. In general, you shouldn't have to pay too much attention to this, but the magic stat is rather relevant, and some mages do appreciably better damage than others. Each class in the game has several different named characters that you can potentially recruit. When you start the game or unlock a new class, the characters available to recruit from any class are random. Then, the game goes through a predetermined order whenever one dies in battle. So, if you want the best court mage in the game, but they're not available, the only way to get them is to recruit a court mage, let them die in battle, get the next one, and repeat until you get the one you want. This is true for all classes in the game. Magic is one of the simpler systems in Romance and Saga 2, but unlocking spells can be a little unintuitive. First of all, you need to be on your second generation where Gerard is the Emperor, or any generation after. Also, if you're on Gerard's generation, he needs to have his golden armor. You'll reach this point fairly early on in the game. Additionally, your Emperor needs to have at least 25 MP or magic points. You can increase your MP by using spells in battle to raise your magic levels. You'll also need at least 1 million crowns in your kingdom's treasury. This isn't as much as it sounds, since chests often contain 100,000 crowns or more. Once you've met these conditions, sit on your throne in Avalon and you'll get the option to build the Magic Research Facility. After 15 battles, it'll be ready for use. This facility is where you learn new spells. You'll be able to teach any party member any type of magic, and they'll start with a magic level based on your global level for that magic type as well as the character's hidden personal stats. You can find these in stat sheets on the web. Finally, you unlock new spells when your global magic level for any given magic type reaches a set amount. My stats and leveling video covers global levels in more detail, but in short, you gain global levels by using spells in combat. Check the Magic Research Facility frequently to see if you've unlocked anything new. Fusion spells, or fusions, are based on a combination of two schools of magic. Each pair of non-opposing magic types has two associated fusion spells. For example, fire can be combined with every other magic type except water, and each of those combinations has two fusions to learn. A fusion is unlocked when your global levels in any two non-opposing magic types reach 15, and another is unlocked when both hit 25. Again, you can refer to my stats and leveling video to learn how global levels work, but once you meet the requirement, an NPC in one of the Magic Research Facility's rooms will begin studying the relevant fusion spell. You can talk to them to confirm this. Then, that spell will become available to learn in the next in-game generation. Note that this means if you don't learn a fusion spell by the game's final generation, you'll be locked out of learning it for the rest of the game. You can, however, learn multiple fusions in the same generation, even from the same magic type combination. For example, if you raise both your fire and light magic from level 10 to level 25 all in a single generation, both of the fire-light fusions will be available in the next generation. Once a fusion is available, a party character must know both of the relevant schools of magic in order to learn it. One advantage to fusion spells, aside from their sweet animations, is that they increase the levels of both magic types that make up the spell when cast in battle. This gives you a quicker way of increasing both your personal and global magic levels. If every character uses fusion spells every turn, your magic levels will increase awfully fast. I want to note though that fusion spells are by no means necessary to beat the game, and in many cases can be underwhelming compared to regular spells. This piece of advice leads me to Romance in Saga 2 allows you a lot of freedom, and many different strategies and setups are effective. You could complete the whole game without using any magic, or opt for a team of all spellcasters. I encourage you to try out the different combinations on your own. However, I'm a guy who tends to prefer using magic in JRPGs whenever possible, so I want to give my personal thoughts and recommendations on what magic types and spells are the most useful. First of all, a strategy tip. Using every type of magic in battle lets you maximize your magic level gains. If you have one mage in the party and want to raise, say, fire and light magic, it's best to use both fire and light spells at least once per battle. Using only fire magic in one battle, then using only light magic in the next is not as effective. I cover this mechanic in detail in my stats and leveling video if you want to learn more. Next, I'll share my thoughts on each type of magic. Light magic is the school your Emperor will start with, and it's one of the best. Light Ball is a starting spell that damages all enemies, which is obviously useful in a JRPG. You'll also get access to Moonlight, a healing spell, as soon as you build the magic research facility. However, it's a lot more expensive than Water Magic's basic healing spell. Eventually, you'll learn more powerful damaging spells, as well as Sword Barrier, a fantastic buff against bosses who use swords or claws, and Light Magic is also used in the most powerful fusion spell, Crimson Flare. Light Magic's final spell is Galactic Rift, which is the single most powerful spell in the game. Fire Magic is a bit of a mixed bag at first, but becomes indispensable late in the game. The starting spell Fireball is generally outclassed by Light Ball, which, as I said, hits all enemies. However, eventually Fire Magic gets some of the strongest single-target spells, Flame Whip and Sunspot Destroyer, which are unlocked around the mid-game. Revive is its final spell, which is the only auto-revive spell in the game, very useful against bosses. Cast it on a character and they'll automatically revive if they're killed. Also, fire is used for the powerful Crimson Flare as well as the fusion spell Firewall, which halves all fire and ice damage for your whole party for one turn. This one's useful against a few bosses. Water Magic is one of the best schools in the game, if not the best. Early on, you'll get access to Life Water, a cheap healing spell, as well as Physic Water, which removes status ailments. Based on these two spells alone, it's worth having at least one Water Magic user in every party. That's not all though. Mist Cover is a fantastic spell that prevents enemies from targeting a character until they attack or cast a damage-dealing spell. It's useful to cast on a dedicated healer in boss battles so that they never take damage. As long as they don't attack the boss, they can't be hit by anything. I also find it useful when I want to force a party member to die so I can replace them with a new character. Cast Mist Cover on all party members except one, have them all defend on every turn, and the exposed character will take every hit until they're out of LP. Water Magic is also used along with Earth Magic for the fusion spell Elixir, which heals all HP and cures all status ailments of one party member. Due to how the game's HP system works, it also revives party members, but that's true for all healing spells and items. We're still not done with Water Magic. Lastly, the Hasten Time spell is infamously broken in Romancing Saga 2. It causes enemies to skip their next turn, which is absolutely amazing. What makes it so powerful is that it does not fail, it affects every boss in the game, and you can cast it on every turn so that the boss never gets to act. The only downside is its high MP cost. It's the most expensive spell in the game, but by the end of the game you'll have enough MP to use it every turn and wipe the floor with even the final boss. It's up to you whether you want to use this strategy. If someone tells you Romancing Saga 2 is too hard, they haven't tried using Hasten Time. Earth Magic is a great all-around school for the mid to late game. Earth Heal is a solid, though expensive, healing spell, while Stone Shower is a high damage spell that targets all enemies for a relatively cheap cost of 8 MP. Once I get Stone Shower, I use it for the rest of the game, even in boss battles. Earth Magic also includes a few buffs that you may find useful depending on your playstyle. It's also got some nice fusions, including the aforementioned Elixir and Firewall. I recommend Earth Magic to practically every player, as even dedicated weapon users will appreciate its buffs and healing. Wind Magic, on the other hand, is most useful in the early game. Wind spellcasters start with Blades of Wind, which is the best single target damage spell for a good portion of the game. It remains useful throughout the whole game, in fact, if you keep your Wind Magic level high. Wind Magic has a few nice buffs and fusion spells, in particular Fairy Glow, which raises speed and magic defense, but it lacks a dedicated healing spell, which hurts this magic type overall. Its HP Absorb spell doesn't do enough damage to be useful due to the way absorption damage is calculated. Overall, Wind Magic is the most disposable of the primary schools, but not bad by any means. Alright, this one needs its own section. Last of all, let's discuss Dark Magic. also known as Umbrology. It's unlocked through a story event which I won't spoil here. Since it's not available from the start, you might think dark magic is one of the most powerful schools of magic in the game. In my experience though, that's not the case. For one, since you unlock it later than the other magic types, you won't have as long to raise its global levels. This can add a lot of grinding to your playthrough if you want to use dark magic to deal damage, which leads to my next point. Dark magic is not a strong option for dealing damage. There are only two dark magic spells in the game that deal damage, Racken and Claw Extend. Racken is a damage dealing spell that also stuns enemies. This is the most useful dark magic spell for the majority of the game. It only costs 1 MP and its damage is weak, but stunning enemies is very helpful against most mobs. Although I don't recommend using a lot of dark magic, tossing Racken onto one of your party members might be a good idea if you have room for it. When stunned, an enemy's turn is skipped. That's useful, but do note your dark magic user needs to outspeed enemies for this to work. Claw Extend creates a claw weapon that your spellcaster gets to use until the end of battle. This weapon attacks using the Hellclaw skill, which does major damage to enemies in a vertical line. While this can be useful, I never found it more effective than using weapon skills with a strong physical attacker or casting spells that deal direct damage. Dark magic also includes the debuff spells Horror and Deadly Drive. These can be useful against the bosses, but other schools of magic have effective debuffs as well, especially once you get fusion spells. So this isn't much of an advantage for dark magic. The last pure dark magic spell is Shadow Servant. This creates a clone of the user which copies that user's actions each turn until the user is hit by a physical attack. Now this one can be a super effective spell. Especially in boss battles, it's very cool to be able to deal double damage when your dark magic user casts fusion spells while they have a Shadow Servant up. The Shadow Servant also protects the user from one physical attack, but that's where the problem with Shadow Servant lies. There's no way to protect the servant from damage, and once it's hit, it's gone. You then have to spend another turn setting it up again. This creates a trade-off where your dark magic user might spend several turns setting up Shadow Servants in one battle, when they could be dealing damage or casting debuffs instead. I found this just isn't worth it, although it is a lot of fun to try out. Dark magic is also used in many fusion spells that either deal damage or provide useful debuffs. However, like with regular dark magic spells, you can achieve similar debuffs using other schools of magic, and the damage-dealing dark fusion spells are where the game's systems get in the way. Because dark magic is based on the logic stat, dark fusion spells deal damage based on both the user's logic and magic stats, and the majority of characters in the game don't have good stat spreads for this. On top of that, dark fusion spells have relatively low base damage compared to other fusions, so they're always going to be the weakest option. Lastly, the fact that the logic stat is hidden and that you can't use the typical magic boosting items to increase your damage makes dark magic a little annoying to use in general. Maybe that was by design. All in all, dark magic is fun to try out and its fusions have super cool animations, but I find it largely a waste of time considering the other schools have some very powerful spells. That about covers the basics and a little more of magic and spells in Romance and Saga 2. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, comments, or corrections, please leave them in the comments below.